5 places you should never touch a man. Let me tell you something, ladies. Men might look tough on the outside, like steel, but inside. There are places you touch that go deeper than skin. And I ain't talking physical. I'm talking emotional, mental, spiritual. You can hurt a man in places you can't see, and once you do, it's hard for him to ever be the same again. 1, don't touch his ego to break it. A man's ego ain't just pride. It's how he survives in this world. When you constantly compare him, belittle him, say he ain't enough, you touch that fragile space where his confidence lies. A real woman helps him grow, not crush his spirit. You know, when we talk about a man's ego, people act like it's this negative thing, like it's all about pride and arrogance. But let me tell you the truth, a man's ego is the engine that keeps him moving forward in life. It's the part of him that makes him want to provide, protect, achieve, and stand tall in a world that constantly tells him he isn't enough. So when someone touches a man's ego the wrong way, not to uplift it, but to crush it, that's one of the deepest wounds he can feel. See, men don't always show their emotions like women do. They don't cry easily. They don't complain out loud. And sometimes they don't even talk about what hurts them. But you best believe they feel it. They carry it. They just hide it under silence. When a woman constantly criticizes a man, compares him to other men, tells him he isn't doing enough, that wounds his ego. You might think you're just being honest, that you're pushing him to be better. But what he hears is, you're not good enough for me. And once a man starts thinking he's failing in the eyes of the woman he loves, he doesn't get louder. He gets quieter. He starts pulling back. He stops sharing his dreams. He stops trying, not because he doesn't care, but because he feels like no matter what he does, it'll never be enough. A man doesn't need you to worship him. He doesn't need you to agree with every decision he makes, but he does need to feel respected. Respect is oxygen to a man. You can love him, cook for him, be loyal to him, but if you take away respect, he'll still feel empty. It's not the shouting or the anger that hurts him the most. It's the disappointment in your eyes when you talk down to him. It's the jokes you make in front of others about what he can't do. It's when you treat other men's successes with admiration, but treat his achievements like they're nothing. Now, don't get it twisted. There's a difference between guiding a man and breaking him. You can correct him without humiliating him. You can push him to grow without tearing him down. A woman has the power to speak life or death into a man's confidence with just her words. When she says, I believe in you, that man will go out into the world and fight every battle with his head high. But when she says, you're useless, he stops fighting, not because he's weak, but because he feels defeated where it matters most at home. Men are simple in one way. They don't ask for much, but they hold on to every word spoken by the person they love. You might forget what you said, but he replays it in his mind when he's alone. So if you're going to touch his ego, touch it to build it. Touch it to encourage him. Tell him you're proud of how hard he's trying. Tell him you see his effort, because behind that tough face, there's a heart that just wants to know it matters to someone. 2, don't touch his dreams with doubt. Every man has a dream, even if he hasn't spoken it out loud. When you laugh at his goals, tell him it's impossible or question his abilities. You don't just touch his dreams, you burn them. A real partner nourishes his vision, even when nobody else believes. Every man, no matter how quiet or loud he is about it, carries a dream inside his chest. Sometimes it's big, owning a business, becoming someone his family can be proud of, building a legacy. Sometimes it's simple, living in peace, providing for the people he loves, or just being good enough in a world that constantly challenges him. And you may not always see it, because most men don't stand on the rooftop and shout their dreams to the world. They protect their dreams like a flame in the wind, shielded, quiet, but burning. So when someone touches that dream with doubt, with laughter, with disbelief, it doesn't just hurt his ambition, it hurts his spirit. Maybe you think you're being realistic when you say you can't do that, or be serious, or people like us don't get those things. But what he hears is not logic. What he hears is that someone he loves doesn't believe in him. And when a man feels that the one person he hoped would stand beside him is actually standing in front of him as a wall, something inside of him dims. He may still smile, still go to work, still act normal, but the fire inside burns lower. He stops talking about his plans. He stops dreaming out loud. He starts keeping everything to himself because he learned that sharing his dreams means risking being laughed at. But here's the truth. A man doesn't want you to build his dream for him. He doesn't need you to solve his problems or make his path easy. He just wants you to believe he can do it. You don't have to have the answers. You just have to have faith in him when the world doesn't. A man will fight giants, climb mountains, face failures again and again if he knows that when he comes home, there is one voice that still says, I know you can do it. When you doubt a man's dream, it isn't only the dream that gets smaller. He does. He begins to shrink to fit the expectations around him. He stops reaching because he feels like the person he is reaching for doesn't want to climb with him. And the sad part is sometimes men fail not because they couldn't succeed, but because they no longer believe success was possible for them. On the other hand, when a woman speaks life into a man's dream, it creates something powerful. The way she says, I'm proud of you for trying, or even if you fail, I'm here, becomes fuel. It makes him think differently. It makes him push harder. It makes him want to become the man she sees in him. And I promise you, when a man feels believed in, he will work day and night to make that dream real, not just for himself, but for both of you. So if you love a man and he opens up that quiet part of his soul where his dreams live, handle it with care. Because dreams are fragile, not just because they're hard to achieve, but because they're tied to his identity, who he thinks he can become. You don't have to understand his dream completely to support it. You don't have to see it to believe in it. All you have to do is say, I'm with you. And sometimes that's more powerful than any plan, any money, any opportunity you could get free. Don't touch his past to control him. Every man has a past, mistakes, scars, regrets. But when you use his past as a weapon, bring it up in every argument, shame him, remind him of his failures. You're not loving him, you're chaining him. Don't touch that place unless it's to heal it. Every man has a past. Some parts he's proud of, some parts he tries to forget, and some parts he wishes he could rewrite if life gave him another chance. His past might include mistakes, heartbreaks, failures, or moments of weakness. And when he finally chooses someone to trust, someone to love, it means he's opening the door to a place he usually keeps locked. He doesn't do that easily. Men show strength on the outside, but inside, many of them are carrying silent regrets, quiet pain, and things they don't talk about because they're afraid of judgment. So when someone he loves reaches into his past, not to understand it, but to use it against him, it doesn't just hurt, it breaks something inside. Bringing up a man's past every time an argument happens is like picking at a wound he's been trying to heal for years. If he made mistakes before you, if he trusted people who betrayed him, if life knocked him down, and he got back up, he carries those memories not to be proud of them, but to remind himself of the man he no longer wants to be. But when you say, remember what you did before, or you're just like you used to be, you're not reminding him, you're shaming him. You're making him feel like no matter how much he changes, no matter how much he grows, he will always be judged by the worst chapter of his story. A man will start to close himself off when his past is used as a weapon. He stops sharing details. He stops letting you into his emotions. He becomes quiet, not because he doesn't love you, but because he feels unsafe with you. To him, love is supposed to be a place of peace, not a courtroom. He doesn't want a partner who keeps records of his wrongs. He wants someone who sees who he is now and who he is trying to become. And let's be real. Nobody's past is spotless. We all have things we wish we could erase. The difference is some people have someone who helps them heal, while others have someone who keeps making them bleed. Love isn't about ignoring the past, but it's about not holding it hostage. You can acknowledge what happened without using it to control him. You can talk about growth without dragging him back into shame. If a man trusts you enough to tell you about his broken places, understand that he didn't do that because he wanted pity. He did it because he believed you would protect that part of him. If instead you use it as ammunition during anger, he'll learn to stay silent. He'll learn to hide. He'll learn that vulnerability is dangerous. And when that happens, love doesn't feel like love anymore. It feels like fear. What a man needs is someone who can look at him and say, I know where you've been, but I also see where you're going. Someone who doesn't deny his past, but doesn't let it define his future. Someone who understands that the past is a place of reference, not a place to live. When a woman can love him like that, with understanding instead of judgment, she doesn't just touch his heart, she heals it. 4, don't touch his masculinity with insults. When you say, you're not a man, other men do better, you're weak, you're touching the core of who he thinks he is. That wound goes deep. A man wants to feel respected. You don't have to agree with him, but you got to speak to him with dignity. A man's masculinity is not just about muscles, a deep voice, or how much money he makes. It's about how he sees himself in this world. It's his identity, his pride, the quiet voice in his head that tells him whether he is worthy, strong, or capable. And sometimes, without even realizing it, people, especially the ones closest to him, touch that part of him in the wrong way. Not physically, but emotionally. When you tell a man he's not enough, when you compare him to other men, when you mock his abilities or say things like, a real man would do this, you don't just hurt his feelings, you wound his masculinity. You have to understand, a man can face the world, handle pressure, deal with problems, and still survive. But if he starts to feel like he's not respected in his own home, that breaks him differently. The world questions him every day. His boss, society, responsibilities, they all demand something from him. But when he comes home, all he really wants is peace, trust, and respect. And when he doesn't get that, when instead he hears sarcasm, criticism, or disrespect, he doesn't explode. He withdraws. He starts to go quiet. He stops trying to prove anything. Why? Because in his mind, it doesn't matter anymore. When a woman says things like, you're not a real man, or other men do this better, it hits him in a place deeper than anger. It hits him in identity. Men don't always express it, but they feel it heavy. The one person whose words mean the most to him becomes the person who makes him feel the smallest. And the thing about men is they may not argue, they may not cry, but they remember. They remember every word said when they were vulnerable. They remember when their efforts were ignored and their intentions were questioned. Now, don't get it wrong. Men are not asking for blind agreement or silence. They're not asking you to never correct them or to treat them like kings. They just want to feel respected even when they're wrong. They want disagreement, not disrespect. Because you can tell a man, I don't think this is right, without saying, you're not a man. You can guide him without belittling him. A strong woman knows how to speak truth with softness. She doesn't break him to get her point across. She reaches his heart. You know what's powerful? When a woman says, I trust you. I know you'll figure it out. I believe in you. Those words don't make him lazy. They make him stronger. He starts wanting to do better, to become better, to be worthy of that belief. Because when a man feels respected by his woman, he becomes unstoppable in the world. He'll work harder, love deeper, and stand taller. But if you constantly question his abilities, attack his pride, or make jokes about his failures in front of others, he won't fight you. He'll slowly detach. He'll stop talking, stop sharing, stop dreaming with you. And not because he stopped loving you, but because he stopped feeling like he was enough for you. So the way you speak to a man matters. The tone, the timing, the intention behind your words. That's how you either build his confidence or break it. You don't have to fix his problems, but you can remind him he's capable. You don't have to agree with everything, but you can disagree with respect. That's the difference between hurting his masculinity and helping him grow into it. 5, don't touch his trust with betrayal. When a man gives you his trust, he's giving you his most guarded place. But lies, cheating, broken promises, they don't just hurt his heart, they change his whole life. A man may forgive, but he never forgets the place where trust was shattered. When a man gives you his trust, he's not just handing you something small, he's giving you the key to the most guarded part of his life. See, men don't trust easily. They might smile, joke, talk, and seem open, but that doesn't mean your inside is heart. A man could be surrounded by people and still feel alone if he doesn't trust any of them. Trust is something he builds slowly, piece by piece, and he gives it only to the person he believes won't break it. So when that trust is betrayed through lies, cheating, manipulation, or even repeated broken promises, it doesn't just break the relationship, it breaks a part of him too. A lot of people think men are strong enough to take anything and move on. And it's true. Men can take pain, they can survive heartbreak, they can rebuild their lives. But the kind of pain that comes from betrayal is different. It sits quietly in his chest. He won't always scream, cry, or talk about it. But it shows in how he stops being himself. He stops laughing the same. He stops opening up. He starts doubting every word, every promise, even the genuine ones. Because once trust is broken, love doesn't flow the same anymore. A man might forgive, but he never fully forgets. That's just how they're wired. You might think it's over and done, but somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice keeps asking, what if it happens again? And when a man has that thought in a relationship, he doesn't leave right away. Most of the time, he stays. But his heart leaves first. That's when you'll see him grow quiet, distant, different. Not because he stopped caring, but because trust, the foundation of every relationship, was cracked. Some people think trust only breaks when there is cheating, but trust breaks in many little ways too. When you promise and never follow through. When you lie about small things. When you tell outsiders what he shared with you in confidence. When you use his secrets in an argument just to win. Those things don't seem big in the moment, but they create distance. They tell him, your heart is not safe here. But when a woman protects a man's trust, it changes everything. When she keeps his secrets safe, when she stands by his side, not just in good times, but in storms, when she speaks truth even when it's hard, that makes him love harder, deeper, more honestly. A man doesn't need perfection. He just needs to know he can rest his heart in someone's hands without fear of being dropped. Trust isn't about never making mistakes. It's about never making the same choice to hurt someone twice. It's about honesty, loyalty, and consistency. It's when your words and your actions match. A man feels deepest love from a woman not when she says, I love you, but when he knows, I'm safe with you. If a man trusts you fully, if he tells you his fears, his dreams, his failures, understand how rare that is. And if you ever break that trust, understand how hard it will be to get it back. You can apologize, you can try again. But rebuilding trust takes time, patience, and proof. Not just words, but effort. Because love without trust is just a beautiful picture with cracks all over it. No matter how pretty it looks from far away, it can't hold together up close.